Is there an ethical duty to provide health care for all the immigrants in the United States? No. By Tamara White. What is an immigrant? An immigrant is a person who comes to live permanently in a foreign country. And should those immigrants be covered with health care? There are different types of immigration statuses that exist. There are citizens, residents, non-immigrants, and undocumented immigrants. So let's just get into some of those definitions. U.S. citizens are defined as people who were either born in the United States or who have become naturalized after 3 or 5 years as a permanent resident. These citizens could never be deported unless their citizenship was obtained through fraud. They can work here legally and receive any kind of public benefits that they qualify for. Permanent or conditional residents are legal residents who have a green card. A green card holder are lawful permanent residents and who have been granted the authorization to live and work in the United States on a permanent basis. These residents have permission to live and work in the United States unless they were guilty of a serious criminal offense or some other immigration violation. If you are a resident, you can also petition for legal status for your spouse or a child. Now let's discuss undocumented immigrants. Undocumented immigrants is anyone residing in any country without legal documentation. It includes people who enter the U.S. without inspection and proper permission from the government, and those who enter with a legal visa that is no longer valid. Immigrant life in America. Approximately half of the immigrants living in the United States are from Mexico and other Latin American countries. Many Central Americans are fleeing because of the desperate and social economic circumstances created in part by the U.S. foreign policy in Central America over many decades. U.S. has a larger immigration population than any other country, with 47 million immigrants as of 2015. 48% of those immigrants were the immediate relatives of U.S. citizens. 20% were family sponsored. 13% are refugees or asylum seekers. 12% were employment based preferences. And also, we have a 1% who was granted the special immigrant visa for Iraqis and Afghans employed by the U.S. government. With the Immigration and National Act of 1965, which was a civil rights movement for the immigrants, where the immigrants, it was actually signed by President Lyndon Johnson in 1965. And with this law, it upheld the caps on the number of immigrants living in the U.S. to bring their families into the country. When this law was passed, it was believed that immigration patterns would not drastically change, even from previously excluded countries, which was much higher than anticipated. Is there an ethical duty to provide health care for all immigrants in the U.S.? My position is no. And important questions to keep in mind are immigrants more likely to be sick because they come to this country with pre-existing sicknesses that they weren't being taken care of in their home country? Should Americans be the ones prioritized in our healthcare system? Can America be able to provide long-term care for these immigrants? Will America be able to provide long-term care for immigrants? And whose financial responsibility is health care for immigrants? Immigrants are not able to pay for their health care, and they should not be a financial burden on America. And if we are continuing to be allowed to use our healthcare system, they will overcrowd an already overcrowded healthcare system. Now, these are two positions that I have. And according to the social contract theory and Hobbes' argument, a British philosopher of the 17th century attempted to show that morality does not depend on God, no natural purposes, and assume that human beings are naturally selfish. Instead, morality should be understood as a solution to a practical problem that arises for self-interested human beings. As Americans, we want to live as well as possible, but in order to flourish, we need a peaceful, cooperative social order, and we cannot have one without rules. There has to be a way to enforce social rules. Suppose there were no rules, no police, and no courts. In the state of nature, he says, there would be no place for industry because the fruit thereof is uncertain, and consequently no culture of the earth, no navigation, nor use of commodities that may be imported by sea, nor commodious buildings, no instruments of moving and removing, such things as require much force, no knowledge of the face of earth, no account of time, no art, no letters, no society, which is worst of all, continual fear and danger of violent death, and life of man's celerity, poor, nasty, British, in short. So in conclusion, there's no way that in America we'd be able to provide our health insurance to all immigrants, because without law and order, the country will not be able to run properly. Thank you. Now, advantages of a